Welcome back to my YouTube channel, Patricia Monna, Intuitive Consulting. Thank you so much, Miss Susan Reynolds. We have Susan back again for testing the astrology and the psychic predictions for the month of July. We don't talk before this about what we're gonna say. We just blurt it out and have the conversation with you guys. And so, Susan, I'll let you go first because you were saying that you've got a lot to say. Both of us do. But I'm dying to hear what the stars have to say and see how it aligns with my psychic predictions. So, welcome, Susan.
Thanks. I don't even know where to begin. It's like my brain hurts from all this stuff floating around.
Yeah.
As I've mentioned multiple times before, 2025 is a major year astrologically for the world, for every country, for the world internationally, not necessarily just Canada, just the US, but everybody. We're seeing this. Canada's got its stuff, US has its stuff. Now there's Israel, and of course there's Russia and Iran, and the world seems to be up in arms. Nobody knows what's going on. I've said June, July, and August astrologically are the three toughest months in 2025 because it's like boom, 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 like we get hit, we get hit, we get hit. It's like we can't really adjust to one thing before the next change comes in. So a lot of people are left with their heads spinning. And some people, and I fully understand this, just check out. I can't handle this anymore. I'm not watching the news. Leave me alone. I don't want to hear about it. Believe me, I get that.
Hmm.
Other people are diving in on the left and on the right, and you're wrong and you're right. And both of our countries and the world are in states of disarray. Now, in March, we had Neptune move into a new sign for the first time in what I think 184 years, or
Wow.
65, 165 years, moved into Aries. And then in May, we've had Saturn move into Aries. So Saturn and Neptune are sitting next to each other. Now in June, we had Jupiter move into Cancer, and we talked about that last time and what that means. Now, as we're moving into July, we have Uranus leaving the sign of Taurus and moving into the sign of Gemini. Astrologically, that's a lot. Just so you know,
It
that's a
sounds
lot.
like it's a lot.
That's a lot. Lot going on. In September, we have an eclipse happening. And so many of us are reevaluating our lives. We're looking at things in ways we haven't looked at before. We're taking a different viewpoint of things. It's challenging, but it's growth inducing. And sometimes I want to say, I wish God or the universe didn't trust me so much. Like, oh, she can handle this. No, I can't. Like, stop. But we're one third of the way through this. July and August. Now, this is intuitive as well as astrological. So I want to make that distinction. When I meditate on July and August, but especially July, because that's the month we're talking about, the word that keeps coming into my mind is explosive. Explosive.
I have that
And
word written down.
in the United
Explosive and
States,
fire.
yeah, I don't know if this is true for Canada, but in the United States, I think the United States is going to see something explosive. That may be white supremacist groups blowing something up. That may be Iranian sleeper cells blowing something up. That may, in this day and age, there's a lot of different ways for something explosive to happen. But I am not limiting that word or that energy to the United States. When I feel that, I feel it internationally. And this doesn't always make a lot of sense to me, but I feel it on the waters. Like I see waters erupting. So I'm wondering, what can that be? Is there an underwater earthquake that
Earthquake.
does
Mhm.
something? Is there a tsunami? The world is in such chaos right now. What happens if, in the midst of all this chaos, we have a horrible tsunami like the one in Southeast Asia years ago?
Yeah.
You're like, that's not going to help anything. And so I'm going to say it's more important than ever. And Patricia, you and I talk about this all the time. It's more important than ever for us to stay grounded because it's going to be boom, boom, boom. Something's happening, something's happening, something's happening.
Literally have that written down. Get
I
grounded
love
in
it.
nature as much as possible. And oh, okay, hold on. The reason why I wrote that down is that So I wrote, and since you're talking about Israel and Iran, I had Israel and Iran. I asked Spirit, could this be the World War III timeline that I've been seeing since 2020? And can we stop this timeline from unfolding? The answer that I received was yes. The grid workers need to get to work. So light travels through the ley lines and across the land. It spread vibrational messages. We need to spread vibrational messages of neutrality and peaceful energy through it into the portals closest to where the leaders are located. So
Bingo.
simply, dowsing the land, finding the ley line, and connecting with it, putting your feet in that soil or on that ground, and then sending your light through the ley lines, peace, neutral energy. It needs to be neutralized. It's like baking soda on a fire, it needs to be neutralized. And wisdom needs to come up the feet of the leaders and into their brains so they understand that what they're doing is wrong. And so that was the visualization that I got. And the thing is that it does feel like, I know that the Schumann resonance is 7.83 hertz, but man, it's been on the rise quite a bit. And the thing is that when the grid workers are doing their work on those days where the Schumann resonance is on the rise, it's not only easiest, but it's amplified. So all the grid workers who are watching this, I hope you understand what I'm talking about. Get to work. There's work to do. There's work to do because we can switch this back into a peaceful timeline, the peaceful timeline that we were here to create. So sorry, just wanted
I
to
agree.
say
No,
that
I agree
because yes, high
100%.
five. We both got that.
July and August are going to be super challenging. And the
Mhm.
reason I'm mentioning this and being, I don't want to say depressive, but very clear, we'll say very clear about this, is because when we're going through a tough time, we feel like that's all there is. We don't always see past that. We don't always realize things are going to get better.
Yeah.
September through December, things start to turn and things start to get better. I do not see World War III happening.
Thank
I
God.
definitely see escalating tensions. And for some reason, I see them not limited to Israel and Iran. Like other countries may get in on this. I
I
don't see NATO declaring anything, but I definitely see lots of backroom deals and brokerage stuff. And I'm just going to mention something I was telling Patricia because I'm in my 70s and I grew up at a time of our government as the good guys and they love its citizens and they're going to do what's right for us and very idealistic and kind of black and white. And what governments all over the world, not just Canada, the US, but all of the world, have descended into is greed, power, corruption, backroom deals, the haves and the have nots, very dark energies. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm just picking things up wrong, but very dark energies. Now think about, and I talked about this in 2023, because Pluto has entered the sign of Aquarius. And Aquarius is a sign of freedom, independence, rebellion, equality. And so, what we are seeing internationally is the corruption or the greed becoming so egregious that whole countries will rise up and say, no more. We're kicking you out of office. This isn't going to play. We are seeing a transformation internationally from an elite power core that is dark and corrupt into something that is much more light filled and much more about all the people rather than the haves and the have nots. But this is going to happen very slowly until Pluto leaves Aquarius, which it's not going to do until 2043. It
Wow.
does not mean that it's going to stay like it is in this year. But it does mean you have to understand that we are in the midst of a gradual transformation of the world, not just our countries, but the world, the way we see our government, the way we see our neighbors, and helping each other. This is actually a positive transformation. But it's like water that you're running into a dirty bowl. All the crap rises to the surface. We're
Yeah.
in the crap phase of this right now.
It feels it.
And for most countries, not just Canada, the United States, this may sound a little silly or a little funny, but I actually see two levels of corruption.
Hmm.
And there's the level of corruption that most of us are used to. kickbacks, backroom deals, insider trading. Like there's a certain level, at least in the United States, of cynicism, like, oh yeah, they go into Congress making $70,000 a year and they leave 2 years later multimillionaire. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like
That's what
like we
happened
see
with
that.
Trudeau. That's
I'm sure
exactly what happened
Canada
with
sees
Trudeau.
that. Yeah, we
Yeah.
see that. So
Mm.
there's a certain level of cynicism about, yeah, we know they're just gonna line their pockets. But what I'm seeing is a second level of corruption that has only started in maybe the last 20 to 30 years, although that may seem like a lot, but in the course of history, it's actually fairly new. And this second level of corruption is government leaders being in the pay of foreign governments that may actually be detrimental to
Mm.
our country's interests. When I say our, I mean Canada and the United States, since
Yeah.
that's where most of the people are going to be listening to this from. So these, you may have Canadian politicians that are taking money from Putin, and saying, oh, we don't need to get
Mm.
involved with Ukraine, and, because Putin's giving them money, or they may be in the pay of, some Middle Eastern country or some rich
Yeah.
person acting as a conduit for something. It's a level of government officials actually lining their pockets at the expense of their country that we have not seen yet. And we're going to see it. In
Brutal.
January, when Patricia and I did our yearly predictions talk, one of the things I said is that we, and again, when I say we, I mean Canada, US, for the moment, it's Canada, US, not the whole world, are going to start to see secrets coming out. We're going to start to see hidden information coming out.
Yeah.
And it's going to be very disillusioning. So people are going to say, wait a minute, I voted for him or her. They're one of the good guys. They cared about us. It's going to be shocking. And we're not going to want to believe that these are our leaders or this is happening. But I
Yeah.
am going to say, have faith, because this is going to turn around and it is going to get better. But you may see some shocking statements. And when we were talking in January, I don't know if I said this in our talk or something else. I said, imagine something you can't quite believe. Like I said, imagine that they discovered that Mother Teresa was ripping off funds from the hospital to fund her secret gambling addiction. Like our heroes have feet of clay. People we believed in are brought down,
Yeah.
not even just to our level, but a level below us. So this would be disillusioning, but it is part of breaking down the old order to create a new kind of world that interacts with each other in different ways. So in July, and I never remember what I say in a past,
Me neither.
and you don't
Good.
either. We just say it and we're done. So I don't know if I
Yeah.
said this already. I probably did, but I'm going to repeat it. Because for June, July, and August, what people, individual people, us, are going to be dealing with is Neptune conjunct Saturn, just meaning these two planets are next to each other.
Okay.
Neptune is all about our ideals, our spirituality, our connection to something more than us, the divine, the universe, whatever you want to call that. It's also a planet of illusion and deception. This is where we lie to ourselves. Oh, he's going to leave his wife any day now. They're not even having sex anymore. Like, oh,
Yeah.
he didn't mean to hit me. I provoked him. He was drunk.
Yeah.
Or, I still have a chance of being a prima ballerina. I know I'm 52, but I'm in shape. Like this is
Yeah.
where we say, I can stop anytime I want to. I know I joined AA, but it's only one beer.
Yeah.
This is a tricky energy because we're lying to ourselves and we're telling ourselves our truth, but it's not really the truth. It's what we don't want to face.
Mm-hmm.
But Saturn is a planet sitting right next to it. And Saturn is the exact opposite. Saturn is a planet of reality, cold, hard facts, the bottom line.
Yeah.
Saturn's asking, who's paying for this? Who's cleaning up? What are my responsibilities? Is there a contract? I need to read it over.
Yeah.
Saturn's like, oh, no, 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 no. We're not sitting around meditating on this. I'm talking to a lawyer. You're like, that's Saturn.
Yeah.
So we have a planet of illusion colliding with a planet of reality. And this
No, it
means,
sounds like a lesson, a slap in
yeah,
the face for people who have, hidden secrets. And you know what?
what?
I wrote down, on a personal scale, breakups, relationships. Now, here's what my observation is, and it's interesting because even like I'll see patterns with my clients, right? And it's just interesting that they've booked in at that time and that they'll have the same kind of issues that they're going through. And one of the themes that I've noticed over the last couple weeks is people will be in a wonderful relationship and but want more and think that they deserve the Cinderella and Cinderella, and the prince is just around the corner if they break up with the person who, you know, does everything for them, loves them unconditionally, is perfect, but they get bored or they've been together a long time and now they want to have an affair. Not a good idea, you guys. Do not want to live a life that you got to lie about. You don't, because truth is coming to the surface. And I think that that's that heat, that fire, that energy, right? So if you guys have been hiding stuff in relationships, it's coming out to be addressed, to be looked at, to be fixed, recreated anew, however you want to talk about it or whatever, however you want to call it. It's just it's coming to the surface. So unnecessary breakups, instead of opening up those lines of communication, talking about how you feel, you might want to think twice. If you've got a good partner, you might want to think twice about making stupid decisions. um so
Secrets tend to come out
yeah,
when Saturn hits Neptune.
that makes
So the
sense.
stuff you've been hiding, that
Yeah.
huge credit card bill that nobody knows about, all this stuff you may have been keeping secret, boom, starts coming up to the surface.
Well, there's an energy in June and July that was almost like something's got to change, something's got to change, but I can't quite put my finger on it, right? So the other thing was quitting jobs or moving careers if they're bored, but it's the way they're doing it that isn't so good. It's that explosive energy coming out when they've had enough instead of, gratefully resigning and with a nice um
We wish you well. Here's a nice severance
yeah,
package,
thank you, exactly. So that's the other thing too, if you are getting ready to quit your job, make sure you're doing it graciously on the way out. Don't take it as an opportunity to explode and let them know how you feel. But it is a time of change. That's the other thing that I've noticed in June, July, August. We're going to see those bigger things shifting, like relationships, like jobs, or possibly even moving. I can feel the difference of the next step kind of unfolding for a lot of people right now. And it just seems like summer is a time where, if you know what your next step is, it's a good time to explore it, figure it out, and then step into it in a gracious, loving way.
I find it interesting because right around the corner, Venus, planet of love and harmony and peace and social activities, it's going to bump up against Uranus, planet of change, upheaval, newness.
Ah.
When Uranus is involved, we tend to get restless. We want something different. It's
Mm-hmm.
like when
That's
somebody
the
opens up
energy.
the refrigerator, they're staring at the refrigerator and like, we have nothing to eat. Well, what do you want? I don't know. You mentioned like tender. No, no, no. I don't. They don't know what they want. They just know they're bored. They're restless. They want
Yeah.
something different. This
Yes.
is what's
Yeah.
happening in terms of love, especially because Venus is involved. But Venus can also be about friends and social groups. So you may find yourself joining new social groups. You may find yourself dropping out of certain groups. You may find some changes with friends. This can be where you're looking at your friends and saying, they sure do take advantage of me a lot. You're
Yeah.
looking at this in a whole different way. And this isn't a bad thing, but it can be a sudden thing. And just like what you were saying, Patricia, if you decide, this isn't working for me, do it the right way. You don't explode, call them bad names and blow everything up. You don't want to destroy your
Exactly.
bridges. You want to do something in the right way. Uranus is very impulsive. So you can impulsively start dating somebody and it's like, oh, this is it. This is love. Don't lend them money. Don't let them in.
Yes.
Here are my rules.
Amen. And it's terrible because actually a couple of my clients this week were telling me about big scams that oh my goodness, The one guy lost everything. And the one lady was scammed out of 250,000. And it's just like, I don't know how people have the heart to do that to people. Like that just, it blows me away that there are people like that, you know. But it's it's the energy that we are in right now that just feels very explosive. Or yes, if you've been taken advantage of, it's coming to the surface to be addressed. You know,
Yeah.
don't let it slide. Don't let it slide anymore. Tis the season to make the change that you need to.
Now, I will say on July 8th, which is not far away,
Yeah.
Uranus, for the first time in 7 years, is going to change signs. And for the first time in, like, I don't know, 84 years, it's going to move into the sign of Gemini. Now, Gemini sometimes has to do with borders or lines or communities. So there could be something sudden and unexpected that happens with borders. It could be that Trump decides to close the border between Canada and the US.
Hope not.
It could be that Iran or Israel starts to make demands about different kind of border changes. It could be Russia demanding, from Ukraine a new border kind of thing. I mean, this is not limited to Canada or the US or Mexico or any one country. This is across the board for everybody. So we may see border challenges, we may see border changes. Now, some of this is good. Gemini is a sign that rules communications, it rules cars, automobiles, vehicles. Uranus is the wave of the future. So we may see self driving cars, we may see new communication devices.
Yeah.
I grew up without a cell phone. Can you imagine not having your cell phone now?
You know,
It's like
I
missing a limb almost, kind of thing.
yeah.
So we may see more technological changes that take us to a different place in
Yeah.
terms of how we communicate, in terms of how we move.
Hi,
It's
you know what?
different. These things are going to come up in the next few years, but it's going to begin this year because July through November of 2025 is when Uranus moves into Gemini. And so our own personal style of communication may change. We may become more blunt, or we may become more tactful, or we may speak up when we used to kind of sit there and not say anything. It's what is your style of communication? Maybe you decide to get a web page that you never had before. Maybe you decide to be like Patricia and start a podcast because you have a message and you want to say something. This is about all the ways we share our ideas.
Mm,
Gemini loves to talk. I do not mean that as an insult because I love to talk too. And Patricia, I make our living talking, so it's perfectly
yeah.
okay. But sometimes all of us, the whole world, with all these energies, can be very big on talking and nobody is listening. So we're going to notice this more in July. You may notice with a spouse, with a friend, with a family member, like, will they not shut up and let me say something? Make sure you're giving other people, no matter how right you think you are, give other people the chance to express their view.
Yes.
Because just telling people how wrong they are doesn't heal anything. It doesn't make anything better.
Yeah.
Even if you think they're 100% wrong, telling them you're completely wrong doesn't make them say, oh, now I see the light. So
Yeah.
we have to figure out, how do we communicate to understand one another instead
Mhm.
of to beat each other over the head with different ideas. We may see more talking. So, on a more mundane level, I'm going to say, get more minutes for your phone. And if you have teenagers, get unlimited minutes for your phone. Gemini
Makes
likes
sense.
to be on the move, and Uranus says, hey, this feels good to me. So, there may be a lot of short trips, a lot of driving, a lot of visiting different provinces and different states. And just, again, it's part of that restless energy.
Hmm.
Uranus in Gemini is very restless. We want to do new things, sign up for tap dancing lessons, date somebody you have never looked at twice before. It's a it's a very strong time of exploration. Doesn't mean you're tied into anything, but you may be like, you know what? I never did this before, Let me take a voice lesson. Let me write poetry. Let me learn to knit.
Yeah.
This is a time when you spread your wings and you look at other things, and it's just for fun. There's not a bad side to this. You get to explore what you've always been interested in. And that's part of the nice energy of what is coming up for us. But politically, we're going to see more politicians talking, if that's possible. If we see politicians
Oh,
talking even
goodness.
more, because Gemini loves to talk. But we may see new leaders come up with new ideas, because Gemini is about the minds and our ideas, and Uranus is what's new and different. So we may see some radical solutions to very long-term problems, and they may work, they may not work. Again, you want to at least evaluate them and take a look at them. But
Yeah.
this is a time when we may hear some things said out loud that we've never said out loud before, that nobody's ever said the quiet part out loud. We may start to see that. And this is in every country, every nationality, all over the world. We may see people saying things on a personal level, on a national level, on an international level, saying things, "Ooh, I wasn't supposed to say that," you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. It makes sense. It makes sense about the fiery and explosive energy that I'm feeling or that I've been seeing for this summer. And what else did I? Oh, and it's interesting because you also mentioned the ground rumbling. I have that written down. The ground is
You
rumbling.
do.
Yeah. And I
I
said
love it
possible.
when we get to the same thing.
I know it's very, very neat how it all comes together. The Andreas fault line in California, I can feel it going like this. I'm not saying it's gonna blow, but I can feel it. I can feel the energy because the energy on the earth and in the ley lines, it's getting an upgrade. It's getting something. It's getting something. With all of these solar blasts, whatever's going on, I'm telling you, when you take your shoes off and you ground yourself in nature, it feels a little different. It resonates, you buzz a little more. I don't know how to explain it. So I know something is shifting. And when that happens, everything that's underneath that crust is also feeling that, right? So I think there is going to be more earthquakes. Now, are they man-made from nuclear testing, or are they, or is it actually Mother Nature? I don't think we'll be able to get the answer to that. However, I can feel it going like this. I can feel it rumbling underneath. And volcanoes erupting in tandem. So the weirdest thing is that I can feel it rumbling, and then I can feel the poof, poof, poof. So I actually think there'll be three or four volcanoes that erupt that happen all around the same time, like whether it's within days of each other or just a short period of time. It feels like it's going off in tandem. Um,
I'm going to say, because of all this explosive energy happening, and we don't quite know to
yeah.
what extent it's going to happen, we may see some satellites be affected.
Mm,
We may see communications be affected, which means, what would you do if your cell phone didn't work?
yeah.
What would you do if you couldn't use a credit card? So we've said this before, but I'm going to say, especially in July and August, make sure you have some cash on hand.
Yeah.
Make sure you have a plan.
Yeah.
What's your plan if the communications go out and
You
we
know,
can't contact people quickly?
I've heard the news saying that, and I've heard people on TikTok and stuff saying that, the grids might go down, the grids might go down. I didn't feel that. I didn't feel that they would. So
Okay.
I think that I don't want to say conspiracy theory, because it's a very real possibility. However, that is not talking about the brownouts that they're doing because they're going to have to conserve energy somehow. So I think that brownouts are going to be a thing of the future, especially up in Canada, if they want all these electrical vehicles, because Mark Carney by 2035 basically wants gas-powered vehicles out of service, gone by it within the
That's
next.
pretty quick. In 10
Well,
years,
and
he wants it all gone.
we don't have the infrastructure, but here's the thing. It's all about control because these electrical vehicles can't get very far. You have to sit and charge them, right? They can't go very far. They don't want you traveling very far. They want to be able to up the price of airline tickets. So only the elite are flying. Carbon footprint, right? Well, here's the thing. Like you've heard me say before, they are building 15-minute cities. so that everything is conveniently within your 15-minute city because they don't want us traveling all over the place. And so him bringing in these electrical vehicles, it's about control. Like I've said before, these cars can repo themselves. They know exactly what you're doing. They have microphones everywhere. They have cameras everywhere. That's what they want. They want a surveillanced state. And that absolutely is what we're moving towards. Same thing with the quantum dot. I believe that the mark of the beast, or what they were talking about with the mark of the beast, I believe it'll be a quantum dot that's under the skin on the right hand or the forehead, that the minute you scan it, all the information about who's standing in front of you, all bank records, SIN number, social credit score, bank account number, all of that will be right there like that. And, you know, a lot of people go, ooh, convenient. And it's just scary to watch it come down. It's scary to watch this become part of our reality. And yes, it's all convenient and they'll sell it as convenience, but really what they're doing is watching our every move, right? So we are moving. I know my country is moving towards that, especially with Mark Carney sitting in that seat that he is, because he comes he he comes from England. He's got two citizenships. And the thing is that Canada is under British rule. Like we're still
Part of
owned by
the
them,
United
right? We're
Kingdom.
owned by them. So, and I know what they're doing out there is literally part of the New World Order. It is moving towards the one world government. It is, you know, digitizing our money and making it so that paper money is going to be obsolete. And you know, if that's the way we move, fine. But that's to track and trace every single sale. This is also why they're getting rid of bank machines out all across Europe. It's so hard to find a bank machine or a bank or a bank. They shut them all down because they don't want you having cash. They can't track you. So here's the other thing. Here's the other thing that just came into Canada. Bill C2. Canadians, we need to look into that. It allows police to go through your mail. Same thing with Canada Post. They can go through your mail without a warrant, without anything. It also criminalizes cash payments over $10,000.
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah. And so I see where this is all going. I see where it's all going. And it's not just in the month of July. Like, so I shouldn't go, oh yeah, these are the predictions for July. This is the predictions over the next 10 years that I
This is
see
the
coming
fight
down.
over the next 10 years
It is. It is.
because
It
the
is. It
world
is.
and the population will fight back against us. So I do see it attempting to go forward to some degree, but I do see the populations rising up and saying no. But this may be years down the road.
But the thing is that they're implementing it little bits at a
I know.
time. That's the thing. They're already doing it. They're already doing it. Like, no one knew that the World Economic Forum was actually funding Alberta Health Services until Danielle Smith got in and said, WTF. Yeah, the World Economic Forum was funding our Alberta health care. Like they're everywhere. They're integrated into everything. And their ideologies, it'll by the time people wake up, it'll be too late.
I
It'll
think
be too
people
late.
already waking up and they don't like Big
But what do
Brother
you do?
with
That's the
that much
problem.
power. And this is why we're having these clashes.
Yeah.
This is why this is happening. The
But there's
United
not
States
enough
is,
there's not enough people that care. That's the
oh, I
problem,
think they are. I
you
think
know?
they are. I think we're not seeing them, but I absolutely think they are there. And given time, we're going to see more and more and more people rise up. In the United States, a few weeks ago, we just had a march nationally for no kings.
What
And
is
the
that? What does that mean? What's that for?
well, because the bills that Trump is putting forward would gut the Constitution because he has put in the bill that he's not accountable to the laws, that he's above the laws of this. Yeah,
Oh, weird.
yeah. that the courts have no power over him and they can't indict him, they can't censure him, they can't do anything to him.
But I thought we knew that because he's got parliamentary, what's the word? What's the word? We knew that already. He had that. They all have that. Parliamentary, there's a word for it. That's why I kind of laughed when I heard that he was getting charged with all this stuff after he got in, or that things were still going ahead. Is like, okay, this is just for entertainment purposes because they really are. They can go and unalive whoever they want and get away with it. They have parliamentary, it's a word, it's a term. Um a par they can. It's they're exempt. It's like parliamentary exemption. That's not the word, but it's an actual term. And when I heard about it, I was like, oh my God, this is all just for entertainment. Like, why are they bothering to try to
Well,
continue on with it?
I will say in our country, I don't know if you're old enough to remember Nixon and some other presidents that have maybe gotten into trouble, and cases against him as a sitting president would go to the Supreme Court,
Yeah.
and the Supreme Court would rule against them. No, you have to turn over the tapes. You have to do this. And the
Hmm.
president says, okay, the court ruled against me. Here are the tapes. Like they would obey the courts. Now we have somebody sitting in the Oval Office who says, no, I don't have to listen to you. The hell with you, which is upsetting the entire United States.
Well, it
Maybe it's
should.
not upsetting
That
Canada or,
that's
or
a
Israel or
dictator.
Iran or
Yeah.
Russia as much, but it is absolutely freaking the United States out. So
Yeah.
there was a march against that. Like, you're supposed to be a president, not a king. That's what the No Kings was about.
Got
Between
it.
5 and 11 million people showed up. And
Wow.
yes, that's huge. Between 5 and 11 million people stood up to say,
Yeah.
we don't like this. So over time, remember, over the next decade, we're going to see more people in more countries. I'm talking about Mexico. I'm talking about England. Talking about no kings. There may be a threat to the monarchy in the next 10 years. So
Yeah.
we are going to see this internationally, where the citizens are on one page and our government and our governmental leaders are on another page. And it is not going to be easy or pretty. But over these 10 years, more and more, we're going to see citizens stand up and say, wait a minute, how did we get so far away from the ideals of our nation? How did we get so far away from what we thought was right and wrong? But this kind of change takes a lot of time. Progress is often slow, but this is what we're going to see.
Hmm.
So, yes, this is absolutely happening. And
Yeah.
Canada is a Cancer country like the United States. So pay attention to July 10th, because in July 10th, we have a full moon in Capricorn. The moon is going to be in Capricorn, the sun is going to be in Cancer, and they're like this. A full moon happens when the sun and the moon are fighting each other. They're in opposite signs. Now, Cancer is about nationality. It is about patriotism. It is about our home, family. In the United States, we would say mom and apple pie. I don't know what the
Yeah.
Canadian version is for that, but
Yeah.
this kind of thing. We wave our flags. We believe in nice kids with white teeth and good diets, and a little idealistic, maybe even very idealistic. And then it's being opposed by Capricorn, which is the planet of big business, government, reality,
Yeah.
harshness. Capricorn asks us to work for something. You want it, you better work for it. We'll reward your work. We're not going to give you something for nothing.
Yes.
So we have a planet of a sign about our nation, and Canada and the United States share the same sign, versus government, big business, cash, these kinds of things. So there may be some announcements, some changes, some things going on there for both Canada and the United States around the 10th. I'd say from maybe the 7th to the 13th, there
Okay.
may be something that really upsets both countries. I don't necessarily mean with each other, although that's possible too these days,
Yeah.
but with whoever is in charge, whatever the announcement is. Suppose there's an announcement that the interest rates are going up by a whole point or something. Um, you know, maybe some major business goes out of business. Maybe the
Okay.
government decides it needs more power, not less. It's a very fraught time. That may be a time when something happens that neither one of our countries is very happy about. So be especially aware during that time. It is on a personal level, when the full moon happens, we tend to be more easily triggered. We tend to be a little, especially with Cancer, they're a little bit more emotional. We might tear up. We might have a few quiet tears. We might have full blown crying jags, this
Yeah.
kind of thing. Because, Cancer's sensitive and Capricorn is more about let's get the job done. Quit your whining, So we have two very different energies trying to make peace here. So be aware of that time that you may be a little bit harsher than you mean to be. You may
Mm.
not be paying as much attention to the feelings because Capricorn is saying, look at business, look at work. There may be some conflicts in your personal life between how much time you spend on the job and how much time you spend with your family. Yeah. I'm also going to say there may be some issues around food, and I've said this before, the United States is considered to be the fattest country in the world, I do not say this proudly, but I say it honestly, And our food is not always the healthiest. It's full of additives and goodness knows what all.
Yeah.
So, we could have, and we, I mean, Canada and the United States have some problems with the food supply.
Mm.
Maybe there's an outbreak of something or some sort of E. coli, something in a national or international brand.
Yeah.
That's, doesn't get caught early enough or whatever kind of thing. There
Hmm.
could be a problem with maybe certain food items aren't available because of all the international stress and tension and intrigue going on.
Yeah.
So just make sure, and we've said this before, you're stocked up on whatever your favorite stuff is.
Yeah, no
And if you
doubt.
can, avoid stress eating. I went to the grocery store earlier today and I was telling Patricia, I'm in the South in the United States, and our heat index was 107 yesterday.
That's
And when I was at
crazy.
the grocery store, I was buying those little mini ice cream sandwiches.
Yeah.
And the woman behind me had two big tubs of ice cream. And we just looked at each other, started laughing, like,
That's
it's
awesome.
usually hot out. Everybody's kind of cranky and struggling to deal with the heat. You got to have ice
Yeah.
cream.
Yeah, no
So
doubt.
to some degree, I give myself a pass on that. But to some degree, I'm like, it's about the mini sandwiches. So you have to find your balance, find your middle ground.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to invest in upgrading your air conditioning unit. Although I will say we may have some brownouts here as well as Canada.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
I don't see the grid breaking, but I do see it being under a lot of stress.
Yeah, I agree
A
with you.
lot of stress.
I agree.
Yeah.
And
I'm also gonna
oh, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was also gonna say there's a new moon in July towards the end of the month. And that new moon is going to be in Leo, and it is on the 24th of July. So remember, you back it up 3 days, that'd be the 21st to the 27th. During that period, during that week, the moon goes into a new moon, which means the sun and the moon are together. They're just having a little bit of a love fest. So the sun is in Leo and the moon is in Leo, and everybody loves this Leo energy.
Mm.
And Leo is a lovely sign. It's very social, it's very outgoing. But Leo also rules our ego. So think of J-Lo. Nobody's ever called her shy and retiring. Think of Madonna. Both of these entertainers are Leos. And you can see that kind of, ego-oriented thing coming out
Mm.
with them. They're larger than life personalities. That's Leo. I have arrived. Let the party begin. I was at a friend's house and her Leo friend was leaving. And so help me, it's the only time I saw somebody in regular life wearing a boa, which she threw around her neck to go out on the town.
Oh my
And I
goodness.
couldn't help myself. I said, are you a Leo? Which it turned out she was because it was such a dramatic move. Leo's
Yeah.
very dramatic. So if you ask a Leo child what happened at school, they just, Mom, you'll never believe it. The teacher was sick, and we thought we were gonna like. They will tell these
Yeah.
these huge stories. So your teacher got a headache and you left out early. But there's a certain theatricalness to Leo. So whatever we're feeling, whatever is going on, we sort of ratchet that up a few notches. It's
Mm-hmm.
not just this happened, but it's like you'll never believe it what happened.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have Leo, well, everybody has Leo in their chart, but if you're a fire sign, you're going to be in harmony with this moon. So there may be new opportunities coming in for you. There may be new ways to express yourself. Leo's very creative. So during that period of time, it's a wonderful time to stop and smell the roses, to do something fun, to treat
Yeah.
ourselves well. Because most of the people who are watching your podcast are good, kind, loving people.
They are.
They want the best for their families, their friends, their neighborhoods. And so many times they put themselves last.
Yeah.
Well, let me babysit the grandkids, or let me help this neighbor, which absolutely speaks to their loving heart. But it's easy sometimes to get overwhelmed and forget that we should be on that list
Yeah.
too. And it's one of the things I love about Leo. It reminds us life is meant to be enjoyed. We're allowed to laugh. We should be playing a little bit.
Yeah.
So
For
for
sure.
that last week there, play a little bit. Yeah, well, go with friends to the beach. Get out of the house. Go to a concert, a theater. Enjoy yourself. It's very romantic. Leo is very romantic. So it's a nice time for a little getaway somewhere. It's a nice time for those romantic gestures. It's even if you're not interested in dating anybody, it's a good time for friends to get together, have a party, celebrate something. It's a lovely way to finish out the month of July. So I love that we get that beautiful Leo energy coming in right at the tail end of the month for everybody.
Nice, 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 nice. You said something. Oh yeah, about empaths. I had something else written down about the grounding. So let's go back to that just for a second. So one thing that I've noticed is that it seems like people who are very high vibrational, um, or have, yeah, they have a higher light around them. Um, it can fry the body. Think of the electrical wiring of the body. It's your nervous system, right? That's the electrical impulses that go through the wiring of your body. So there's a lot of empaths out there um, that get neuropathy, that get pain in their legs, swelling in their legs, twitchy legs for no reason. They think it's just, restless leg syndrome or fibromyalgia or, achy legs. I personally think that when you carry a very, very high vibration and you're not grounding it out of your body, it can get stuck in the legs. And so when I saw the ley lines being ignited, I was like, people with neuropathy are gonna be feeling it this month. So for anyone who does tend to get swollen legs, achy legs, twitchy legs, neuropathy, um, fibromyalgia, aches and pains that, you know, doctors can't really put their finger on. I bet you anything you're going to need that Tylenol or find that way to be able to get yourself out of pain this month. I think that it's going to be triggered. And like I said, I can feel it coming up from the ground when I walk on it. And it's interesting because different places, and because I do have neuropathy, and different places set my pain off like you would not believe. I went to the Roman Colosseum, and the minute my foot or my feet hit that property, I had such excruciating nerve pain going up my legs. My feet swelled up, my legs swelled up. It was awful. Think about it. You're walking on people's pain, right? There's so much bloodshed in that place, and it leaves an imprint. So I know personally that there's different places that can set off a person's fibromyalgia more or neuropathy more. Well, do people put it together that maybe it has something to do with where we are? You know, um, yeah, I've had a few weird theories come to me lately, but that was one of them. So if your legs are hurting you, I think that's why.
I've had restless leg syndrome my whole life.
Mm,
Makes other people crazy.
lots of light workers
Doesn't
have it.
bother me, but makes
Ah,
everybody else crazy. Yeah.
yeah, it drives me nuts. I've had restless legs and achy legs since I was, God, since I could remember. And I also think that the soul vibrate. That's the soul is the vibe. The soul is the vibration. Everyone has their own unique energetic signature. And I know that because that's what I'm tracking and tracing when I'm looking for a missing person case. It's the energetic signature of the person, right? Not the body. The energetic signature is what houses everything, all the information of who they are. And that energy, it's almost like the brighter a soul is, the more their body misfires or they don't quite fit inside of their body. So they'll have things like skin issues, rashes, or be sensitive to things, allergies, all of that. Light workers, a lot of them have it. A lot of them have these issues, and they don't stop to think, is it because you vibrate so high that you kind of short circuit the body, because the body is the machine, right? And I think that there's a correlation there. I know I might sound crazy, but I think there's
No,
a correlation.
sometimes there's just a misalignment
Yeah,
between your energetic being and the earth, the physicality of
yeah,
coming into earth. And lots of times there's like what I call an original wound. Like we come into earth and go, I don't like this. There's like sometimes they don't come fully into earth or whatever, or there's just a feeling, I don't belong here. I don't belong here. I don't want to
yeah,
be here. And
yeah,
that can be very troubling your whole life. Remember when I said Uranus is restless? Some of that can also be trouble sleeping. I
mm,
know I'm in my 70s and a lot of people I know have trouble sleeping. So I hate telling you this, but yes, this Uranus and Gemini can sometimes increase any trouble you might have sleeping. Sometimes you can't turn the mind off,
yeah.
or you're just so
Sparky.
agitated about things. It, it's more challenging to meditate
Yeah,
because when you move into meditation, you're quieting the mind. But
yeah.
Uranus and Gemini is activating the mind. So be aware that may come up in July.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, lots to digest in
Yeah.
this one. And I hope everybody has an amazing, amazing summer. And I hope you do too, Susan. I hope it cools down a little bit for you where you can breathe again.
Well, I've got my ice cream. I can power through.
But we'll have to see how this all goes down. Just maintain the peace. Bring in that vibration of peace through you, and that's what you need to exude so that we can neutralize. Be the vibe. Be the vibe. Don't allow the vibe of the room to become you. You vibrate and allow the room to then feel your vibration. You know what I mean? We're here to affect change, so bring in the peace and don't let that be snuffed out. Whatever you do.
And not
So
forget your power.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I thank you so much, Susan, for joining me
We're
again.
on the same page
We
as usual.
totally are. Literally,
We, we come
right
at it
down on the
differently,
same
but
page.
dadgum, we end
Yeah,
up in the same place.
totally. But before we go, I did want to mention I have one spot left open on my psychic awareness retreat in October 5th to the 10th in Sedona, Arizona. It's a bucket list trip. Check it out on my website, www.patriciamona.com. If you are in Calgary, I am hosting a weekend retreat in Bragg Creek. That's also on my website. I think I've got 4 spots left open for that. So anyways, just wanted to mention that because I truly believe that spirit directs people to these retreats, and it just becomes a sisterhood. It becomes family when we come together. It's just the most amazing time. So I wanted to mention that.
When you do something like the retreat that Patricia's talking about, the energy just amplifies. It's like a mushroom of energy
That's
that
why I
just
love doing it in
reaches
Sedona.
insane heights.
Yeah.
And it's almost always a very positive and powerful experience.
Thank
So I'm not doing any retreats.
you.
But in August, I think I'm going to teach intermediate astrology.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Got anything
People can
else
stay
coming up?
home and just Zoom and they can stay in their air conditioned house. Yeah.
Nice. And I got to tell you, Susan has done my astrology before, and she is absolutely bang on amazing. And you can see it. You can see it. You can see it in your readings every month. So, Susan, thanks again so much for joining me.
Oh, I
And how
hope
can,
everybody has a great month and we'll see you next month.
hold on, how can they find you? Got to give them your
Oh,
website.
sorry, I forgot. Go to my website, exploreastrology.com. I have free predictions for every sign every month. You don't have to join anything or buy anything or pay anything. So go and check out and see what July's got in store for you. Yeah.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay. God bless, Susan. God bless you, everybody
Bye.
out in YouTube land. And we'll see you next month. Bye for now.